Hey, welcome back to the Invest Podcast. This is Brian.
This is Darryl.
And Darryl, this is episode number 454, Top Hats, Tuxes, and Treachery.
It's a lot of penguin-y stuff right there.
Well, I wanted to go with the alliteration, and I couldn't fit any Lois or Superman, Supes and Lolo into the alliteration there.
How about truth?
Okay. Truth. Our truth?
No, not talking about that bum.
Truth, top hats, tuxes, and treachery. There we go. I like it. See, we need to workshop this stuff before we start recording. Anyway, how you doing, buddy?
Great. After another amazing Sunday and Monday as far as episodes go. Shows.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One sadly has ended, though.
Yes.
There's a couple beginnings that start up, new shows that start up this weekend. There's actually one that started this past Friday that I haven't got a chance to watch yet. But
which one was that?
Man, like we've talked about Arcane season 2, first 3 episodes.
Yeah, sorry, you're right. We did.
But I know we've talked about it before. I don't know if we talked about it last week on here, but I know on our phone calls, November is spicy as far as TV shows go.
So much good stuff.
Some potentially great stuff.
Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that Dune Prophecies is actually good, and that they don't mess up the Bene Gesserit any more than Denis Villeneuve, however you say it, already has. That's my concern.
Again, that's my concern. I had another conversation with one of my coworkers who he loves the penguin. He loved the penguin.
Yeah.
I kind of gotten him into watching Superman and Lois.
Nice.
And he likes it. He's not sure how much yet. But we had a conversation about Dune, and I told him, I said, look, have you read the books? He's like, no. So I was like, you're going to, and I know his taste. I was like, you're going to like it a lot more than we did, especially likely the first one, because again, I probably would have liked the first one. I mean, I know I would have loved the second one.
I just like the second one more than the first one, I think.
See, I was the opposite of you.
Wait, no.
I thought the second.
I don't know. I don't remember. I've tried to memorize them.
Yeah. But again, it's one of those things that I'm really hoping he doesn't kind of get in his own way. Like I think he did in Dune. I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. That's actually a good question. He might not be involved in it.
Okay.
Honestly, as adaptations go, if every adaptation had a Todd Helbing involved with it, the adaptations we get on TV and movies would be so much better.
So much better. Yeah. Yeah. So Cobra Kai is coming back this Friday.
Yeah. That was the other one I was talking about.
Just a couple days from today. Yellowstone came back this week.
Which we haven't watched any of that.
So it was
it was.
Yeah, it happened. It's an episode that happened. That's probably the nicest thing I can say about
it. Are you channeling your inner GSP?
GSP.
George St. Pierre.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Not impressed by your performance.
Oh yeah, definitely a very unimpressive series of performances in I don't know. It's just it was gone for too long. It lost all of its shine.
Shows have to watch out for that.
Yeah, I was like wholly uninterested. Like I forgot like half of the characters' names. I'm like, I don't need to watch it. And then they're like talking about Jamie. I'm like, which one's Jamie again? Is that the guy who was married to the Native American lady who had the son that got kidnapped? No, that was Casey. No. So they'll have girls' names too.
Jamie was the main villain in Ghost Rider, or Ghost Rider 1 or 2.
No, it's Wes Bentley. He was was the first game master in the Hunger Games.
See, I know. I look at him as Blackheart.
Oh, okay. I have never seen Ghost Rider.
Oh, you have not seen the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movies?
I haven't. Wait, was there more than one?
Can you call your... Yes. And Idris Elba was in the second one.
He was?
I watched that one once, and it was not
that
good.
Is entirely news to me. I am I'm today years old when I learned that. Anyway, let's you want to talk about the Penguin?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's talk about that bastard.
So just up front, in the subtitle, I redacted something about Vic. We were gonna spoil the shit out of the probably one of the best series finales I've ever seen. So Darryl, real quick, just for the season one, the only season that is going to happen for the Penguin, out of 10, even though there were no trick umbrellas, what do you give season one?
9.25. And as I said before, I said a few weeks ago, I thought this show for me would be better than the sum of its parts. And I believe it is a little bit better than the sum of its parts, even though each episode, except, we had issues with a couple weeks ago, but with one episode, even though it was still good, but it was the weakest link in the chain of all these episodes. But yes, this is tied for number one right now for me with Shogun, which, again, we talked about this. I thought Shogun, for me personally, was a little better from start to finish, but Penguin, as we'll talk about, definitely brought it home better with the finale.
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%. I went with a 9.1 out of 10. This was the best example of a limited series going all killer, no filler. And I really hope the hacks at Lucasfilm watched this and can understand how to actually do a show.
We won't.
I know they won't, but I can hope, right? That's what rebellions are built on. They're built on hope.
Not when it comes to certain people that are still in charge of.
I'm just saying, it's a rebellion after all, and I rebel.
No. They rebelled telling good stories. So.
Fuck yeah. All right. Okay. And for the season finale, out of 5 very intimate death scenes, what do you give this one?
I give it a 4.75.
No, you said a 7.5.
I did not.
Oh, I missed the 4. Okay, so you give it a 4.75. I was like, okay, because I broke the rating scale.
You thought I did too?
Yeah, well, I thought you really broke the rating scale as kind of just to show me, you think you're gonna break the rating scale. Well, let me show you something or another. Yeah, I gave it a 5.15 out of 5. This is hands down one of the best series finales I've ever seen. Especially because we know the story of Oz is going to continue as the main character in the next Batman movie, or the main villain. I'm looking at him as the main character. But this episode was especially building off of last week. We find out that Oz's mom knew the whole time that Oz killed his brothers. She tried to have Rex knock him off, and he's in constant denial about what Francis knows and what Francis thinks he is.
The fact that we find that out, that she knew the whole time, it makes everything it's so much sadder, so much worse, and so much more interesting from a character study perspective. Not just with, and again, he was a kid, so I don't think he necessarily picked up that she knew. Well, based on his reaction, but again, he could be lying to himself,
Right.
and that's the thing. That's one of those things that I don't think it matters in this standpoint, just because of how well that scene between the two of them, when she says she knows, came across,
Right.
and was acted, and was just a magnificent performance by everyone involved. Even with Sofia, who looked like she was playing tennis, watching them go back and forth, going back and forth between Francis and Oz. But just it's one of those things. It's like a movie, and I'm going to use an example, even though I think you said you didn't like it or whatever, but like The Sixth Sense, in the sense of knowing and how they filmed it, and knowing what you know about it, and how everything makes sense at the end, as far as his lack of or people's lack of interactions with him. This is similar in the sense of now watching Oz's and his interactions with Francis, at least when she's cognizant losing of what's going on. Yeah.
I look at it now as he's held her prisoner for all these years.
Yeah.
Like she was a prisoner. She wasn't, Yeah. It's I equate it to Breaking Bad, actually. Because I remember how I really disliked the first couple seasons of Breaking Bad, especially the first season.
Yeah.
And I really didn't start liking it till Gus showed up. And then when season 5 started and they started tying everything from season 1, because I don't think they did a good enough show. This is the one nitpick I have about this show too, is they didn't do a good enough job with about how much time passed from
there was a couple
episode to episode or whatever. So
the biggest example of that was when he got the mushrooms, and then the next episode, business is booming. How much time?
That was last week. Yeah. Between 6 and 7, weeks, maybe months passed, and they made it.
And this is the thing:
hours.
You don't have to necessarily spend a lot of time on it, but you can put one thing out there, whether it's a line of dialogue or whether it's a picture of the newspaper and the date on what it's. You don't have to spend a lot of time, but let us know how much time passed.
Even just him smacking Vic on the back, man. Hey, what did you think it would take us as long to build this? It just took us weeks to get the bliss out to everybody.
Yeah. You like doing
good,
that, don't
Vic.
you?
You're doing good. What?
You like doing his voice?
I mean, I may or may not have been talking in the Penguin voice more than my regular voice, which I don't even know if it sounds good or not. I don't care. I just like talking like that. So, but yeah. So there's a lot of heartbreak that happens in this episode. This is a show. This is probably the very best example of a show where there's no good guys to root for, yet you still kind of root for everybody.
I will say, yeah. The whole time we all knew what Vic was, or not Vic. You said that, and then what Oz was.
Yeah, sorry,
but we still were rooting for him.
Right.
Again,
we're rooting for Oz to become the crime lord of Gotham.
Yeah.
And it's do it, Oz. Get it done.
And I was still Team Oz. And again, this is despite knowing that he's an absolute scumbag. We know that. He knows it. He's our scumbag, And then he does one thing that we talked about it while from a thematic standpoint, I absolutely understand it. It still crushed me that he did that.
Yeah.
And again, do we want to talk about it, or do we want to keep that?
We have to talk about it.
It's kind of hard not to.
But before that, before he does what he does at the end, he launches this plan. Okay, so so Frances stabs him, and he goes to the hospital. He takes her to the hospital because she stabs him and then has a stroke. And while he's there, he calls Vic, and he's trying to figure out what to do. And Vic is telling Oz, look, all these people love you. They're here for you. They will protect you. And I loved it because he was like, oh God, I forgot the guy's name now. Link. Yeah. He's like, oh, Link, he's a whatever. He's not even a shot caller, And he's like, yeah, no, but he's got you. And then you see that with the Asian Triad gang, and like Vic's like, oh, God damn it. Oz was like, oh no, they didn't really have me. And then it turned out that they did, which was cool. And then by doing that, he's able to abduct Sofia. And very reminiscent to the scene at the beginning where he knew, or not the beginning, in Sofia's flashback, where Oz knew that she was innocent and didn't do anything about it. He's taking her to what she thinks is her death, when really it's a fate worse than death, because he met with the councilman and dropped a dime on her. And so, said she was responsible for all of everything, and that she was the one who set the bomb off under the city that Maroney was running the Bliss. It was like, oh God, it was masterful, just masterful lying. And
again, so that was his superpower,
right? And Sofia's got the most tragic ending because she has a fate worse than death, because she ends up back in Arkham with Rush as her doctor. And after the power dynamic between the two of them had switched to where she had all the power and Dr. Rush was like, just a hanger on. Now he's back to the person with the power. So it'll be really interesting. I really hope she shows up in a subsequent Batman movie as the Hangman.
But her story, again, like many characters, is you F around and you find out, because just like Oz might, might rue the day that he just didn't put a bullet in her.
Oh yeah.
It's the same can be said for her, in the sense of she wanted to hurt him, and she gets the short end of the shaft. And that's what I like about this dynamic between these two, is they didn't want to end each other.
Right.
They again, there's that bloodlust of not just like savaging this person to death. It's making them live with that gaping wound that they created.
You have to sit and think about what you've done.
Yeah. So again, I was wondering how they were going to have this end, because I thought that she was too strong of a character to just take out.
So this is the first time I think DC's learned a lesson, because Marvel was really good about not just killing all their villains off at the end of each movie. It happened, but it wasn't the same thing. It's like DC kills their characters at the end of the, like, it's like, oh, you're a one and done character, done. Like, they didn't kill the Riddler at the end of the Batman, just like they didn't kill her. And then she gets a letter from Rush from Selina Kyle, which leads me to wonder who she's half, right? She's her half sister. Is it from her dad getting someone pregnant, or is it from her mom and Rex? Because Rex is Selina Kyle's dad in the comics right now. So it's really interesting, because if they make her a Maroni or a Falcone, that's too close to Huntress.
Oh yeah, it would be.
So, because she was a Borelli, of the Borelli crime family, it's just too close to like making Catwoman Huntress, and I don't like it. But the heartbreaking thing about this episode was Vic. Vic is,
and that's why we keep saying his name accidentally, because it's on the forefront of our mind.
After we're done with this segment talking about Vic, we're never going to be able to talk about Vic again, because he's sleeping with the fishes.
Yeah, he was the MVP, because without Vic,
the whole season,
without Vic, none of this is possible. None of this happens for Oz. And he understands that. He knows it too. Oz even tells him.
Even after Oz gets stabbed and Vic comes to help him and he gives him that pep talk, he's like, "You've been practicing this, haven't you?" And he was like, he could neither confirm nor deny Crime Lord. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
And it's so tragic in the sense of after Oz, and I think a big part of this is what happens between him and his mom, where, she goes scorched earth on him, before just completely stroking out.
Right.
And understanding how, and then Vic says you're like family.
Mm-hmm.
And after the harrowing experience Oz had with his mom, not just what she said, but the danger that Sofia put her in,
right,
he realized he can't have any weaknesses.
Well, and he knows, he knows Oz. He knows Oz's weakness.
Yeah, and he can't trust. Again, this is Oz's one of his failures, is that he can't trust that Vic will never betray him, because that's what he had with his mom. And not just betraying him in the sense of, saying I hate you and I wish you were dead, which that's kind of shocking enough, but also like I said, the fact that she was used as a pawn by Sofia,
right,
to get Oz in a weakened state. And the same thing could have been done with Vic. It's not just that he doesn't trust Vic, or he has that fear that what if Vic betrays me?
Mm-hmm.
It's also that Vic means so much to me. What happens if somebody takes advantage of what Vic means to me?
Right. Yeah, I mean, Vic is a weak spot. Vic also has the ability to turn on Oz, which he doesn't want to happen. And
for two reasons, not just to lose his power, but also to break his heart.
Right.
And speaking of heartbreaking, it's not that he just killed Vic. It was the intimacy in the action and how he did it, which was so much worse than him just saying, "You know what? Take a look at that sunrise."
Yeah.
And that was the worst thing, because he's talking to him the whole time.
Right.
And like just the shock and the betrayal that Vic must have felt in that moment before he realized, I'm going to die here. This was the thing where I've been team Oz this whole time. And this unforgivable act here is, it's hard for a character that even though you've known he's a scumbag, it's hard to get past, because again, Vic was probably, not probably, but Vic, I would say him and Oz were 1A and 1B as far as my favorite characters. As much as I love Sofia, because I thought she was great, Vic and Oz were 1A and 1B for favorite characters of this season or of this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. You're absolutely right. And, it's just one of those things that it's so rare that we get characters like this these days, just well thought out, well developed, well written, specifically well written, well
acted,
and then well acted.
Direct, we've got everything.
We've gotten well acted, poorly written characters for a while now.
Yeah,
but in Lauren Frank, however you say it, I hope this show wins every award it can possibly win.
It should. It should, because it is. You can go up and down. Yes.
Your favorite category, sound design. It sounds great. I don't know if you watched any of the episodes with headphones on.
I did not. No.
You should go back and especially when they're in the sewers and when they're on the streets of Gotham. The sound is it's just everything is this is the first time since the Tim Burton movies that Gotham felt like a character again. Because like in the Nolan movies, it was just Chicago.
Yeah, and that's Gotham has to feel like a character to immerse you into the world.
Yeah.
It's not like other shows where the acting and stuff, because Gotham, it again, going to one of my favorite all-time shows, Supernatural. Supernatural, it's about the brothers, but it's all and what envelops their relationship and their relationship with their father, nothing more than the car, than the Impala.
Right.
And that Impala was a character in and of itself. It had its own episode, which was a fantastic episode.
And they never killed it.
No. Well, they maimed it, and he brought it back to life a couple times. But
they heard it.
It was always there.
But yeah. No, you're right. I think the last thing is the way this goes out is there's a flashback to Oz, like from last week, where he promises to give his mom everything. Ma, I'll give you everything you want, everything you deserve, and the penthouse suite she always wanted, so she didn't have neighbors on top or beside her, and she gets that, but she's in the vegetative state, looking out the window, again, still as Oz's prisoner, because Oz won't let her go. And then the episode closes out with him dancing with Eve in Francis's dress, which was creepy AF.
That was disturbing on a level. I mean, that was extremely disturbing. And it's funny because when you first see Eve, you see the dress and and I'm thinking, oh God, he's having her wear this dress. And that was bad enough. That was bad enough.
You know what I was thinking?
What?
Ooh, brother, ooh. So, that meme was just going through my head the whole time.
The fact that he had her wear the dress was bad enough.
Yeah.
And then you hear the line she delivers, and it's even worse. It is. What did Peter Quill say about the trash panda? It's so much worse.
It's so much worse. Yeah. And then the very end of the episode is as the douchebags at Screen Rant, I believe it was, where like they finally remembered Batman. The bat signal was in the sky. The show wasn't called The Batman. I thought Batman was going to show up in this episode. Maybe. I'm actually really glad that he didn't, and I'm glad that they did it that way, because like Oz has this power base now, and he's a much more worthy character from what we saw when Batman was chasing him on the highway.
Man, I still love that scene.
It's the only good part of the movie.
Nah, I like that movie until the end.
So
until the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, the last 40, was it 45 or like 85? I mean, it was so long.
I don't know.
It was not.
I mean, I haven't watched it since I saw it the first time.
So Batman's meeting with this therapist, and the therapist says, "Have you ever had a job?" And Batman says, "I once worked at a zoo." And the therapist says, "Great. What did you take from that?" And the Batman said, "Definitely not a penguin." The therapist said, "What?" Batman said, "What?" All right. That was the way to finally kill this. No, goodbye, Penguin. You were great. We're going to miss you. Hopefully we get more good stuff like that with Dune Prophecy from HBO Max.
I'm really hoping so. Really hoping so.
So, all right. Are you ready to talk Supes and Lolo?
Oh, man.
So, all right, just for some context for everybody listening, when I watched The Penguin on Sunday, I just texted Darryl at the end of the app when I finished watching, OMG, and then like 4 penguin emojis.
Oh, I couldn't tell what those were
Yeah.
on like I could.
And
Okay, let me look.
and it was just like, I mean, because wow, it was such a great finale. And then
And
yesterday, after he watched Supes and Lolo, he texted me something like this episode. Like,
well, I
hold on, hold
told
on.
you that
trying
I
to
was
find
20.
it. We have too many texts. Oh, you said, man, Superman and Lois, what an episode. Oh, yeah. And you were right. It was a what a episode. It's weird because it's like our air index in Ohio is really good right now in Cincinnati, and it strangely allergy season randomly hit my apartment.
I will say this without reservation, in the last, I'd say 2 years, because I don't want to go like I think longer than that, but there is no show that hits more emotional notes or hits the emotional note better on a more consistent basis than Superman and Lois for me. It and again, it's not just those hell yeah moments. It's the small moments. It's the the
It's the little
family
chuckle
moments.
that you get.
It's
Like,
it's
you
those
know, can
yeah. It's the Superman moments. It's the
can I
Clark
tell
Kent. It's
you?
the
Can I
Clark
tell
Kent.
you why
Yeah.
that is?
What?
This is the most wholesome show on TV.
1,000%.
This is the only show on TV right now, in my opinion, that gives a positive view of family, that gives a positive view of men, and gives this positive view of exceptionalism.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
Lois
And
is exceptional, Clark is
yes.
exceptional, Superman is exceptional, Jordan is Jordan, Jonathan is exceptional. You know, Lana
And
is exceptional. Chrissy
and
is
and, and
whatever
I
Chrissy is, but you know, hey.
yeah. And I go back to Man of Steel, and despite all of its faults, even though I loved it, when right before he starts flying, you have Jarrell's voiceover where he says, "You will give these people an ideal to strive towards," and that's what Superman is,
And
and
they will
that's
follow
why
you into the sun.
yes, and that's why the last week's episode, even though we had issues with how Lex was kind of like lost his power, it was at the feet of the residents of Smallville.
Yeah.
And some of the things they did where people would see this last week's episode where they ignored the $10 million or whatever. It's because everybody's not driven by that. And that's the thing. That's what this society is and what so many characters are and what so many people are, especially with the internet and social media. It's about how can I get this bag? You see it with the NIL stuff with college sports now,
Right.
which I had a conversation today about it where it's driving me away from loving college sports like I used to, because I'm fine with the NFL like that. But again, everyone is not about the bag.
So are you
There are things that
gonna
are
be a Pistons fan with me?
no, there are things that are a
What?
lot more important than that. And this is what Smallville does. And this is why, like you said, it's a wholesome show, is because all these characters are just, again, striving to be better than you are today.
Right. Oh yeah.
In the sense of everyone falls down. You're gonna fall down, and that's another thing they said. But you're gonna have to get back up in Man of Steel.
Yeah.
You're gonna fall down. What do you do? After you make the mistake.
You climb out of the hole that had the bats in it and pick yourself back up again.
Yeah. So I love the fact that, and Clark even says, I've made a lot of mistakes. And again, even though it's Superman, a lot of people can relate to it because he mentions, as my kids were younger, I missed a lot of stuff,
Right.
Doing what I was doing. So I don't know I know what line I love the most. Well, I know what scene, it's pretty obvious what scene, but that line at the end where he says, "I'm just a regular guy."
Yeah.
Again, Tyler Hoechlin is my Superman. Like,
Heck
that's
yeah.
and my Clark Kent.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
full stop. I'll listen to any other things people say. Christopher Reeves, I loved Henry Cavill, what he could have been It's more what he could have been than what he was. But full stop, Clark Kent, Superman, Tyler Hoechlin, that's it for me. That's all I need to know. He's my Superman.
I'll tell you what I need from your Superman now is a prequel series with him and Douglas Smith's Jimmy Olsen.
Oh, dude. Oh, man. The fact that we're only getting 4 seasons of this.
Here's what's fun. This episode was directed by Gregory Smith, who, from Everwood, Rookie Blue, all that stuff, right? He's directed several episodes. He's a very good television director. He's done a lot of the Arrowverse stuff. His brother, Douglas Smith, was Jimmy Olsen. When they were doing the interview at the end of the episode, Gregory Smith was the director of the interview that was happening for the Daily Planet.
That's funny.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just, it's just funny to know those things. But we got Jimmy Olsen in this episode, and he did not disappoint. Like, even when he's talking to Clark, trying to be friends with him, he's like, we're pals. And it's like, yeah, of course, Jimmy Olsen is Superman's pal. Like, he just looks up to Clark Kent. It was also funny to have Jimmy Olsen tower over Superman.
That was pretty funny. Yeah.
Because Tyler Hoechlin is like 3 apples high. But anyway, it was great to see that and to see, like, they had Jimmy's sister who, I don't, whatever. But, like, they didn't race swap Jimmy and they didn't gender swap Jimmy. They gave us a cool Jimmy Olsen, like a good Jimmy Olsen that Superman so richly deserves. It's like in Superman Returns with Brandon Routh and Sam Huntington. Like, they had amazing chemistry as Clark Kent and Jimmy Olsen and Superman and Jimmy Olsen. And we got robbed from further movies with them because they were given such a dog shit director with Bryan Singer and a dog shit script with Bryan Singer and David S. Goyer. And I believe it was David S. Goyer. If it wasn't, I still don't apologize. But, there's just so much cool stuff that is happening and, in this episode. And it's like, God damn it, there's only 3 episodes to go now.
And Helbing once again shows how much reverence he has for the source material and for Superman, because when Jimmy confronts Clark about, hey, you've been out these 3 games, this happened, an elevator at the Eiffel Tower, a helicopter that almost crashed into a building, an almost train derailment.
All throwbacks to the Superman movies.
Yeah, to the original Superman 1 and 2, which that was that put a smile on my face.
I giggled. That's one where I was like,
yeah,
I just giggled. It made me happy.
But and again, before we get to the scene, because this scene I can spend all day on. But before that, I love, again, this show with the voiceovers in the beginning of the episodes this season have been fantastic. And how Clark said, he starts off, well, when I started being Superman in Metropolis, it was easy to get lost. And and again, they do the phone booth thing, and the back alley thing, which was great. That's, again, another paying homage to the original, which this guy gets it. Helbing gets it. There's no other thing. That's all I can say. That's all I need to say is that he gets it. And then the sad part of it is where this is one of those things you don't necessarily think about because of how well this show has, or how just great Hoechlin is and how cheery he seems to be, but just the loneliness of not being able to tell people who you really are. And the sad part is when him and Jimmy kind of split after they win that softball championship or whatever, and Lois says, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then he adds, "I'm used to it."
Right.
And it's like, that doesn't mean you're okay. And you can tell he's not okay, but he has to put up that brave front. And Lois even talks about that to the boys, who they think he's being a little bit overbearing. And she tells him, look, this is how he grew up. You know, he grew up with that fear instilled by his parents that, hey, you can't let anybody know this or they're going to take you away. And it's understandable, like while they would do that, because again, let's be honest, if there was a kid like that and the government could take him away from the parents, they absolutely would.
Oh,
I mean, they do a lot far less nowadays. But anyway, so we understand that, like understand their fear, but it's one of those things that the kids, and again, I can look at examples with my dad or my parents where they would tell me, tell me something, and it's like, come on, just chill out with that. Because again, especially when you're young, you think you know everything, and you don't realize until later on in life or later on when something happens, you're like, yeah, okay, maybe I kind of get where they were coming from.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I got with that, where I'm so, and again, you were talking about exceptional. And the conversations through, and again, not just this episode, but throughout the series that Lois and Clark together and separately have with the boys, it's never overdone. It's never like overly dramatic. And that's the thing I love about this show. You're going back to your wholesome. There's no drama. You might
drama.
be able to argue.
There's not,
but
there's not drama. You know,
which would be drama for the sake of drama,
right?
And adults act like
nobody
adults.
Diminishes anybody else. Like, even though they're parents, they don't diminish the feelings of Jordan and Jonathan, but they still parent them, right? The whole thing with going to Timmy or Jimmy or whatever his name was, and trying to gaslight their the mom, right, was that just didn't sit well with the boys, and that's who they raised, right? They raised that to not sit well. You know, Clark with the coach, right? It was like you could tell he hated doing that, but he had to.
Yeah. Right.
And then like Daredevil had its hallway scenes, right? Like this show has its diner scenes. And every time they're in the diner, like something interesting happens. Like Lex comes in. The stuff with Morgan Edge early on in the show, who was later Tyrell.
He pulled a gun on my wife.
Right. That scene from last season was amazing. It was probably the single best thing that happened in season 3, which is by far the weakest of the 4 seasons.
Yeah.
You know what the difference is between season 3 and every other season?
Most
of the episodes were written, like it was written by just one person, and most of the rest of the series, it's written by, and it's a team. Like this one was Kate Alden and George Kitson.
We did talk about that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, next week is Brent Fletcher and Todd Helbing. Episode 9 is Jai Jameson, and then the finale is Brent Fletcher and Todd Helbing. And next week's episode is directed by Michael Cudlitz. Jai Jameson directs and writes the penultimate episode 9, and Gregory Smith is directing the series finale. So, and he directed the season premiere. He did episode 4, A Perfectly Good Wedding, which was a great episode, and he did a regular guy. So, it's really like they really have so many good writers, like George Kitson and Max Kroenig wrote episode 4, for example. Kate Aldrich and Christy Korzanek wrote A World Without, which is a super powerful episode. That was episode 2. In with what they were able to do here with the family dynamic of the Kents, of Clark and the boys trying to convince people that they weren't super, to Lois trying to build the crib, and getting Chrissy and Kyle and Eric Valdez is still like, he's a very underrated, like, shining moment of this show from halfway through season 1 on. It's just, there's so much there. to enjoy. And there's characters to root for and care for, and there's characters to not care about, and there's characters to love to hate, and there's characters to, you know, be the antagonists. And they've just done such a good job of weaving this story. And, you know, kind of fuck James Gunn for not letting them continue and giving this story the air it needed to actually like grow into something iconic.
Yeah, and we can bring this one home by talking about the diner scene.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That, I mean, that is, I mean,
well, I want to talk about the interview at the end last.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The diner scene is the setup for that.
Yeah. The diner scene, again, like you said, there are so many interesting things, and so many, not just interesting, just character defining moments that happened in the diner. And this was one where Clark has the choice when Candace's father comes back after being told who Clark is.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew, I was like, oh, he's going to have to bring a gun and force Clark to make a choice.
Right.
And the way they use slow motion and Clark having that moment to himself and in looking to Lois and deciding enough's enough.
The best part was that Lois was just looking straight ahead, like kind of like, you got this, you know, even though like, you know, she was frozen in like, you know, hybrid in the super speed, but it was, that was such a great moment.
Yeah. The use of slow motion it wasn't Zack Snyder, just gratuitous, but it meant something there. And that's what it was like. Again, I know how Zack Snyder wants to use it and I'd like the idea he has behind it, in the sense of he wants it to be like a panel from a comic. That's when he uses slow motion. And that's what this was right here. That whole thing was, you know how you have the panel or the pages where there's all these little, you know, panels showing different people reacting to one moment. And then you have the character himself. That's what that was.
Right.
That was a panel, like 2-page panel of people reacting to a split second of something, and then you getting the main character at the end in that, like, whether it be a splash page or a half page.
Right.
That's what that was right there. And him not even saying anything to Briganti as Kyle, and what was the other guy's name? Get him out of there.
Yeah, I don't remember. He was the one who turned down the $10 million from last weekend.
He says to the rest of the people in there, and this is such a Superman thing to say, I'm sorry for lying to you all this whole time.
Yeah.
That's the first thing he said to everyone.
Yeah, so the secret's out, and they want to get ahead of it because they realize that Lex was the one who put him up. Candace's dad put him up to all this, and kind of lit that fuse, if you will, and then let the bomb go. And so we get this interview with Clark. You know, he's still got the glasses. He's in the flannel. He's nervous. You know, he's always like, you know, I've never liked to be in front of the camera, or I've never liked to be on camera. He said, which is funny because, you know, of things that Superman would do to hide his identity. Like he'd kind of like vibrate so that the camera couldn't get a clear picture of him, and, you know, he'd move super fast, or he could hear the click happening, so he could turn away in an instant so he wouldn't catch a clear shot of his face. And it was really cool to watch him walk down and like introduce himself to like the staff of the shoot. And he thanked the wardrobe lady for the fuzzy flannel. I thought that was just a very Clark thing. And then when he sits down and he starts to tell his story, it was a very interesting moment for a Superman fan to see him willingly put Lois and Jonathan and Jordan and all of his friends in harm's way.
One of the things I thought would have been great, but with Lex, it couldn't have happened. Even though love the idea of his secret being out at Smallville and
Yeah.
everyone in Smallville knowing and keeping that secret. But again, with Lex Luthor knowing, that's not something that, because I was on some message board and somebody said that and I agreed, but I just thought about it. I was like, it wouldn't work with Lex Luthor knowing. So you want to get out in front of stuff, because sooner or later it's going to come out. That's not something you're going to keep secret. It's just not.
Right.
So he has to come out and take, and do what he did. And I just, that line where he just says, "I'm just a regular guy," was so powerful, because that's what Superman, again, you can't discount obviously the powers and all that stuff, but at his core, he's a regular guy that was taught to do the right thing by his parents. And that's what he tries to do. And he tries to use his powers to do whatever he can to help other people. And that is this Helbing and this show understand Superman more than any, or as well as anything I've ever seen or read, as well as, not necessarily better than everything, but better than most things, but just as good as everything that I've seen and read. And I've seen pretty much every Superman thing except like every, like all of the cartoon stuff. Seen a lot of it, not everything. But Helbing, again, it's just like when we were talking about Bo DeMeo understanding and respecting the X-Men with season 1 of X-Men 97. Helbing is the same way. And again, this has been going on for 4 years, and the fact that we're not getting the vision of what they had for 7 years because of this Superman movie with James Gunn, it really, really bugs me. It really bugs me.
Yeah, and
because I'll tell you right now. David Cornsweet might be good. Again, he might be good. He's not going to be Tyler Hoechlin. He's not going to be better than that.
He's, the few things I've seen him in, like, I don't know what his ceiling is, but it's not very high.
And it really, really bothers me that something this good, which could have been better, again, if we've talked about this since season 1 or 2, if they would have put it on Max and gave it a better budget, gave it a better ability to reach more people and not screw with, especially the first 2 seasons. How many times did they screw with it would be on for 4 weeks, then be off for 4 weeks or 3 weeks or 2 weeks. You would have a new episode, and they kept doing that, and it showed, because people would get tired of waiting. They never did a good job of helping it gain momentum with the way they showcased it on CW.
Yeah,
and
hopefully this finds new life on Max once it goes on, because I'll tell you right now, it has only once cracked 500,000 viewers.
What, this year?
For this season.
This season, okay.
It was like 450, 470, 430, 480, 430, 510. And then obviously this week we won't know that till next week. And I know we haven't been talking about ratings for stuff very much at all lately, but it's one of those things, like even the Penguin, like it was 240. This is in millions, right? So 0.424 or 242. The finale of the Penguin had 0.464, so 464,000 people watched the finale. But I think that's just the live number, like on TV. But
I was gonna say, is that the live?
Yeah, but that's almost double what the premiere was.
And I did get a chance to watch I didn't get a chance to rewatch this one, but I watched one of the reaction channels like Blind Wave, and one of the guys said, Eric, he said, so I feel sorry or I feel bad for the people that haven't been able to watch and to realize how good this show is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's one of those things I wish I could share with more people and more, because this is a show where you don't come out of that show with anything
we do
other
a pretty
than
good job of sharing this show with other people.
yeah. Well, I mean, just like
I mean,
again, I shared it with one of my workers and he's watching it
right.
now.
You're like
so
me. You talk about it to, I'm sure you talk about it to everybody. We talk about it ad nauseum on this show, like for the last 4 years. What else? We review it every week. We share stuff
still not
on
enough.
Instagram when they
Still
post
not
it.
enough.
I get it. I know. But I'm just saying, like, we are helping fight the fight to get people to watch this show, and it's not. And the thing is it's not getting canceled because of numbers.
Yeah, I really hope what you said is true and happens, is that it finds that new life on Max. And I am definitely buying. This is one of those shows that when it comes out, I'm getting the Blu-ray of all 4 seasons.
I'm definitely gonna buy the series Blu-ray for this one for sure.
100%.
Because I did the season pass through Apple for the show so that I can watch it without commercials, because I will pay whatever that price is. But yeah. Anyway, it's just
we did
great. We didn't
do the ratings.
Okay, so out of where are we? Oh, so out of 10, nobody does a diner scene like Nerd Dad Clark Kent. How many stars?
Out of 5. 4.85, and this is far and away my highest rated episode. Mm-hmm. And I think this season's gonna be similar to Penguin, where especially if they bring it home these last 3 episodes, if they keep up the quality, we said this with the Penguin a few weeks ago. If it keeps up the quality, it's going to be better than the sum of its parts, just because of what every time I watch this show, I feel lighter. Yeah. Because of just what the care and the love and the respect of the actors, the directors, the writers, the showrunner Todd Helbing have for Superman, and the way they do it. Because again, they have talent, because you can love something and not have the talent to express how much you love it or how much you revere it. These people that are involved with this show have the talent to express how much they love and revere the characters.
We need more, like you said, more.
Yes.
So I gave it a 4.68. This is my highest score of this season as well. This is probably the best character-driven episode of the season. I'm still going to go with the premiere as the best, like, overall, like, just production value, just because Doomsday was so awesome. But
that fight was,
But, I mean, that fight was next level for a CW show. Give me a break. I mean, Clark Kent Nerd Dad is the version of Clark Kent that I never knew I always wanted, and now it's the only version I want to see.
Yes. And Todd Helbing, if he ever listened to this, he'd just smile and say, "You're welcome." Mm-hmm. He'd do a Maui to us, but because I never. Again, I with this with this challenge of the Super Sons, and it was cool seeing Clark with John, even though it was more John and Damian with those. But seeing what we get with this show and how they did such a great job individualizing the twins, it's just fabulous, man. And I have all the faith in the world that these people are going to bring it home in these last 3 episodes.
Yes. Agreed. Especially with the teams that they have on there.
Yes, especially with who you said is tag team in these. They're absolutely going to bring this home. So it's sad, but that it's ending. But I'm happy that it was here.
I agree. I 100% agree. And on that note, we're right at an hour. Any last words?
Just a regular guy.
Just a regular guy. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great one. Thanks for listening. Yeah. Bye.
See ya.
The Infamous Podcast is recorded in Kings Mills, Ohio, just north of Cincinnati. You can find new episodes every Sunday on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, our website, or anywhere podcasts are downloaded. This show is hosted by Darryl Jasper and me, Brian Tudor. To find more information about the show, visit us at infamouspodcast.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Infamous Podcast to keep up with the show. We also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/Infamous Podcast. We have some great rewards for our patrons and are looking for help to grow the show to bring you more of the content you want to hear. Music for this podcast is provided by Michael Henry from meetmichaelhenry.com. So, whenever you're listening to us, have a great day, night, evening, weekend, whenever it is, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.